Back guys to Skull Hacks. So today's video is going to be one of the most important from job perspective. So please watch full video, and at the end we'll tell you where I will upload this PDF of 100 questions for free for you all. So first understand what type of jobs you can get after mastering Linux. You can get jobs as System Administrator, Linux Administrator, entry into any type of security job. To learn Linux in detail, subscribe our channel. So let's start with 100 questions. For now, I will just give a short answer for the questions. For full PDF with answers, I must get 50 likes on this video. First one, what is Linux and why is it so popular? Linux is popular because it is free and open source. We can download Linux for free and customize it as per our needs. What is Bash? Bash is short for Born Again Shell. It combines all the features from the original version of Bourne Shell, plus additional functions to make it easier and more convenient to use. What is the core of Linux operating system? The core of the Linux operating system is kernel. It is broken down into shell, command, script, and terminal. What is the basic difference between Unix and Linux operating system? Linux is free and open source software, but Unix, on the other hand, is copyrighted name. Only big companies are allowed to use the Unix copyright and name. What is Lilo? Lilo is a bootloader for Linux. It is used mainly to load the Linux operating system into main memory so that it can begin its operations. What is an inode? All files have its description stored in a structure called inode. The inode contains info about the file size, access and modification time, permission, and so on. What is a swap space? A swap space is a certain amount of space used by Linux to temporarily hold some programs that are running concurrently. What is the advantage of open source? Open source allows you to distribute your software, including source codes, freely to anyone who is interested. People would then be able to add features and even debug and correct errors that are in the source code. What is the basic difference between Bash and DOS? Bash commands are case-sensitive, while DOS commands are not. DOS follows a convention in naming files, which is 8-character file name followed by a dot and 3-character for the extension. Bash follows no such convention. What is the difference between TCP and UDP? The basic difference is that TCP establishes a connection before sending data, and this allows it to control the data flow and guarantee that all packets get delivered. UDP simply chucks datagrams onto the wire, and if some get lost or arrive in bad order, there's no way to request a resend. What is the importance of the GNU project? This so-called free software movement allows several advantages, such as the freedom to run programs for any purpose and freedom to study and modify a program to your needs. How does DNS resolution work? A client application requests an IP address from the name server, usually by connecting to UDP port 53. The name server will attempt to resolve the FQDN based on its resolver library, which may contain authoritative information about the host requested or cached data about that name from an earlier query. Describe the root account. The root account is like a systems administrator account and allows you full control of the system. What is CLI? CLI is short for Command Line Interface. This interface allows user to type declarative commands to instruct the computer to perform operations. What is GUI? GUI, or Graphical User Interface, makes use of images and icons that users click and manipulate as a way of communicating with the computer. How can you find out how much memory Linux is using? From a command shell, use the concatenate command, cat/proc/meminfo for memory usage information. You should see a line starting something like mem 64655360, etc. What is an MX record? An MX record numerically ranks the mail servers you would prefer to receive email for a domain. Please describe the Linux boot-up sequence. There are 7 steps to the boot-up sequence. What is typical size for a swap partition under a Linux system? The preferred size for a swap partition is twice the amount of physical memory available on the system. If this is not possible, then the minimum size should be the same as the amount of memory installed. How do you search for a pattern and then replace it in an entire file? You use sed, or in Vi editor, the search uses character s/the pattern to be searched, Slash the pattern to replace it with /G, which stands for entire file. Does the Ctrl plus Alt plus Del key combination work on Linux? Yes, it does. Just like Windows, you can use this key combination to perform a system restart. How do you list and flush all iptables? First, you use the L switch to view all the currently present rules and then F to flush them. How do you change permissions under Linux? Assuming you are the system administrator or the owner of a file or directory, you can grant permission using the chmod command. What is a shell? What are their names? The shell is the part of the system with which the user interacts. In Linux, what names are assigned to the different serial ports? Serial ports are identified as /dev/ttys0 to /dev/ttys7. These are the equivalent names of COM1 to COM8 in Windows. What is a zombie? Zombies are essentially the premature processes whose mature parent processes died without reaping its children. How do you access partitions under Linux? Linux assigns numbers at the end of the drive identifier. For example, if the first IDE hard drive had 3 primary partitions, they would be named numbered /dev/hda1, /dev/hda2, and /dev/hda3. You need to define a macro, a key binding for the existing command. How would you do it? There is a command called bind in Bash shell which is capable of defining macro or binding a key. In order to bind a key with an existing command, we need to generate character sequence emitted by the key. Your assistant needs to print directory stack. What would you suggest? The Linux command deers will print the directory stack. What is the maximum length for a file name under Linux? Any file name can have a maximum of 255 characters. This limit does not include the path name, so therefore the entire path name and file name could well exceed 255 characters. What does the command hash is used for in Bash shell? Linux command hash manages internal hash table, fins, and remember full path of the specified command. Display used command names and number of times the command is used. Which built in Linux command performs arithmetic operation of integers in Bash? The let command that performs arithmetic operation of integer in Bash shell. Explain virtual desktop. This serves as an alternative to minimizing and maximizing different windows on the current desktop. Using virtual desktops, each desktop is a clean slate where you can open one or more programs. Differentiate multi-user from multitask. Multi-user means that more than one person can use the computer at the same time. Multitask means that even a single user can have the computer work on more than one task or program at the same time. You have a large text file, and you need to see one page at a time. What will you do? You can achieve the above result by pipeline the output of cat file name.txt with more commands. Who own the data dictionary? The user SYS owns the data dictionary. Users SYS and SYSM are created by default automatically. How do you share a program across different virtual desktops under Linux? To share a program across different virtual desktops, in the upper left-hand corner of a program window, look for an icon that looks like a pushpin. Pressing this button will pin that application in place, making it appear in all virtual desktops, in the same position on screen. What command should you use to check the number of files and disk space used by each user's defined quotas? The command repquota comes to rescue here. Command repquota summaries quotas for a file system. What are daemons? Daemons are services that provide several functions that may not be available under the base operating system. You have lots of running jobs. How would you remove all the running processes without restarting the machine? The Linux command disown_r will remove all the running processes. A user is new to Linux and he wants to know full list of available commands. What would you suggest him? A command compgen-c will show a full list of available commands. What are the kinds of permissions under Linux? There are 3 kinds of permissions under Linux. Read. Users may read the files or list the directory. Write. Users may write to the file of new files to the directory. Execute. Users may run the file or look up a specific file within a directory. You need to track events on your system. What will you do? For tracking the events on the system, we need a daemon called syslogged. The syslog daemon is useful in tracking the information of system and then saving it to specified log files. How will you restrict IP so that the restricted IPs may not use the FTP server? We can block suspicious IP by integrating TCP_wrapper. We need to enable the parameter TCP_wrapper =yes in the configuration file at etc. vsftp.conf. What are the different modes when using VI Editor? There are 3 modes under V. Command mode. This is the mode where you start in. Edit mode. This is the mode that allows you to do text editing. X mode. This is the mode wherein you interact with VI with instructions to process a file. Is it possible to use shortcut for a long path name? Yes, there is. A feature known as file name expansion allows you to do this using the tab key. Tell us the difference between Telnet and SSH. Telnet and SSH both are communication protocol which are used to manage remote system. SSH is secured, which requires exchanging of key opposite of Telnet which transmit data in plain text, which means Telnet is less secure than SSH. You need to stop your X server. When you tries to kill your X server, you got an error message that you cannot quit X server. What will you do? When killing a X server, it won't work normal way like doing, etc. init gdm stop. We need to execute a special key combination, Ctrl plus Alt plus backspace, which will force X server to restart. What is the difference between command, ping, and ping6? Both the commands are same and used for the same purpose except that the fact that ping6 is used with IPv6 IP address. What is redirection? Redirection is the process of directing data from one output to another. It can also be used to direct an output as an input to another process. You want to search for all the tar files in your home directory and wants to delete all at once. How will you do it? We need to use find command with rm command to delete all tar files. #find/home/name tar vertical bar zargs rmrf. What is the difference between locate and slocate command? The slocate looks for the files that user have access, whereas locate will search for the file with updated result. What is the SMTP? SMTP is the most common protocol for an email server. What Samba service do? The Samba service provides Microsoft SMB support in Linux so that Linux machines can connect to Microsoft network resources. Which service can be used with NFS to provide remote file access for Unix systems? NIS is used with NFS to provide remote file access for Unix systems. What is MTA? MTA is a service of send-mail server, which transfer mail from one network or host to another network or host. Name a connectionless protocol for file transfer. TFTP is a connectionless protocol for file transfer. You company have slow internet connection. Which Linux service you can use to manage internet connection? You should use Squid Proxy Server, which allows to manage the web contents and also cache the web pages to decrease the amount of traffic going to internet. Which port should you open in your host firewall to run web server? By default, web server use port 80 and 443, which you need to open in firewall. Which IP addressing should you use for server? For server, you should always use static IP address. Which ports should you open in host firewall for an email server? Open port 110, which is used by the POP3 email protocol. Open port 25, which is used by the SMTP email protocol. Open port 143, which is used by the IMAP email protocol. Which IP address should you use for client desktop? For client, you can use both static and dynamic method. For easy management, using DHCP to assign IP address would be the best option. What is initerd image and what is its function in the Linux booting process? The initial RAM disk, initerd, is an initial root file system that is mounted prior to when the real root file system is available. The initerd is bound to the kernel and loaded as part of the kernel boot procedure. Explain the terms SUID, SGID, and StickyBit. 65 question. In addition to the basic file permissions in Linux, there are few special permissions that are available for executable files and directories. SUID. If setToID is set, when the file is executed by a user, the process will have the same rights as the owner of the file being executed. SGID. Same as above, but inherits group privileges of the file on execution, not user privileges. Similar way, when you create a file within directory, it will inherit the group ownership of the directories. Sticky bit. Sticky bit was used on executable in Linux so that they would remain in the memory more time after the initial execution, hoping they would be needed in the near future. List out few of the differences between soft link and hard link. A. Hard link cannot be created for directories. Hard link can only be created for a file. B. Symbolic links or symlinks can link to a directory. What is the difference between umask and ulimit? Umask stands for User File Creation Mask, which determines the settings of a mask that controls which file permissions are set for files and directories when they are created. While ulimit is a Linux built-in command which provides control over the resources available to the shell and/or to processes started by it. What is the functionality of a Puppet server? Puppet is an open-source and enterprise application for configuration management tool in Unix, like operating system. What is Selinux? Selinux is an acronym for Security Enhanced Linux. It is an access control implementation and security feature for the Linux kernel. Explain briefly the procedure for reinstalling Grub in Linux. All these steps will be explained in brief in PDF. Explain the different scenarios involved in TCP three-way handshake. The TCP three-way handshake is the process for establishing a TCP connection. We can explain three-way handshake with a simple scenario where we assume a client computer is contacting a server to send it some information. What is RDNS and explain its benefits in the Linux domain name systems? A typical DNS lookup is used to determine which IP address is associated with a host name, and this is called forward DNS lookup. The RDNS, reverse DNS, is implemented using a specialized zone record for reverse lookups called PTR record. PTR records always resolve to names, never IP addresses. Why is LVM required? LVM stands for Logical Volume Manager. To resize file system size online, we required LVM partition in Linux. How to check memory stats and CPU stats? Using free and vmstat command, we can display the physical and virtual memory statistics, respectively. With the help of SR command, we see the CPU utilization and other stats. How to increase the size of LVM partition? Use the lvextend command, lvextend L plus 100M or dev in name of the LVM partition. In this example, we are extending the size by 100 MB. How to create partition from the raw disk? Using fdisk utility, we can create partitions from the raw disk. Below are the steps to create partition from the raw DSIC. fdisk/dev/hd*, IDE, or /dev/sd*, SCSI. What is load average in a Linux? Load average is defined as the average sum of the number of process waiting in the run queue and number of process currently executing over the period of 1, 5, and 15 minutes. What is the role of udev daemon? The udev daemon used to create and remove all these device nodes or files in /dev/directory. What is RAID? RAID stands for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks. RAID is a method by which same data or information is spread across several disks. What is CUPS? What is the location of log files for CUPS? CUPS stands for Common Unix Printing System. What is YUM? YUM stands for Yellow Dog Updater, modified because it is based on YUP, the Yellow Dog Updater. Differentiate relative path from absolute path. Relative path refers to the path relative to the current path. Absolute path, on the other hand, refers to the exact path as referenced from the root directory. What is piping? Piping, represented by the pipe character vertical bar, is used to combine two or more commands together. The output of the first command serves as input the next command, and so on. What is a superuser? A superuser is a special type user who has open access to all files and commands on a system. What is the use of the T command? The T command does two things. One is to get data from the standard input and send it to standard output. The second is that it redirects a copy of that input data into a file that was specified. What is parsing? Parsing is the process of breaking up of a command line into words. What is PID? PID is short for process ID. It is used primarily to identify every process that runs on the Unix system, whether it runs on the foreground or runs at the background. Every PID is considered unique. What is LDD? List dynamic dependencies. Print shared library dependencies. What is the command to uninstall processes in Linux? RPME sendmail. E remove. What are the Linux boot files? Boot, grub.conf. Contains boot disk parameters. Difference between NFS, soft and hard mounting points. Hard mount option. If the client fails to access the server, then the connection hangs, and once the system is up, then it will again access the server. Soft. If the client failed to connect the server, it immediately gives the error report and closes the connection. What is the status code 403,404 represented in Apache server? 403 represent forbidden error. Means if a file misses some Selinux security context. 404 represent that there is a CGI script missing or web pages missing. What is the meaning of AX? AX, Advanced Interactive Executive, is an open operating system from IBM which is based on a version of Unix. Who invented Unix? Unix was created in 1969 by Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie at Bell Laboratories. What is the command to make a process to run in the foreground from background? When the process is running, press a Ctrl+Z. Now at the command prompt, type BG. I want to see how many interfaces, Ethernet cards, are working using single command. If config, a file which is not deleted by normal user, and also root using RM. For that type of file, how we delete it? Using chatter command, we need to change the attributes, and then we remove using RM command. E.g., chatter view example. What is wildcard interpretation? When a command line contains wildcard characters such as asterisk or, these are replaced by the shell with a sorted list of files whose pattern matches the input command. What does this command do? Cat food 1. Kitty. It redirects the output of cat food into the file kitty. The command is the same as cat food kitty. What neat command will do? Neat command provides graphical interface to change network settings for network devices. Is there any relation between modprobe.conf file and network devices? Yes. This file assigns a kernel module to each network device. So that's all 100 questions with answers for full detailed answers. Follow us on Telegram. Link in description will share PDF there after 50 likes on this video.